So, how are you, students? We are going now to talk about civilization and Western civilization. But before that, we'll start with, as I gave you here, a list of websites that you can find many YouTubes or internet, links that talk about philosophy and Greek philosophy and ancient Greek philosophy and so on. Now, I chose one of them, which is about the theme, why do we need philosophy? And let's see this together, please, and then we'll make a discussion, okay? Now, I'll make it mute so that we can discuss it together. More than you can read it, of course. Now we have, if you ask the question, why do we need philosophy? Because some people say we don't need this. It's not needed for humanity, and some people think that it adds many problems because we are complicating things. So what can you tell such people? Mainly, there are many reasons for thinking of the need of philosophy. So you can think about it as, one of the disciplines that is used in modern times and in ancient times also. Also, it is needed in, if you are going to study, you have to think about different topics and you have to question ideas. And that is the method to be used whether you are at home or alone or in school or at university or in work. So we have many things to think about because you are facing the problem of uncertainty. If we have uncertain issues that you are thinking about, and of course you need answers to revise your thoughts and others' thoughts, and you always raise the question, what makes my answer the right answer, right? If it's not scientific, how can I prove that? So we have different, let's say, disciplines to judge and to think about it. So let's say, of course, if you see or the websites, you can see different channels talking about this, and I'll give you some of them. One of them, for example, here that you can see, which is the language, how language shapes the way we think. As I told you last time, that our languages, if you're talking English or Arabic or French or other languages, this also shapes the way you think, and of course vice versa. Okay, so we still need philosophy, and we need to contemplate using philosophy. So let's say, yeah, that's so we'll discuss this now. What are the essential things that philosophy concentrates on? First, morality. So, as if you remember, we talked about branches of philosophy, and we said one of them is ethics, if you remember, that deals with morality. So, if you want to discuss issues and to see whether, for example, this is accepted, on what basis is it accepted, this, for example, kind of, your values, how you think about it, and your conduct, okay? You always refer to morality. Now, why do we differ in terms of morality? Sometimes it refers to religion, okay? Sometimes maybe you think of things that you need to think about how things are given in life, according to tradition, for example, or the ethical decisions that may be taken in, for example, certain place differ from another place, from one person differs from another person. That is based sometimes on religion or on the way he or she is raised, right? Even the let's what we call the ideological point of view may differ. If you are thinking about, if you are raised with a mentality of, for example, people who believe in democracy, that will be different. Your moralities and conduct will be different from those who don't believe in democracy, but on the other hand, for example, they believe in dictatorship and so on. So different interpretations for that. Some of them refer to civilization and to culture and traditions of that place, for example, right? This is number one. Now, this is very important. You have to differentiate between science, logic, and theology. Now, science can be proved by if you make any experiment, you can prove it, okay, or you can prove it whether it's right or wrong, okay. So according to the tests and the experiments, you can reach your solutions, okay. Now, what about the theology? Theology here, this word, theology, it's let's say the study of whatever, and we'll talk about it later, whatever is related to the things that are religious. And if you think about God issues, the existence of God and different religious let's say beliefs, that will be talking about theology. Now, what about logic? Logic, you use it when you want to, again, prove something, but in a logical way, using mathematical, for example, formula. And sometimes if you want to prove something based on what we call logical frameworks. Also, again, we'll talk about it later. Now, if you talk about science, or of course, we have different kinds of science, right? We have economy, we have politics, we have natural sciences, we have humanities and humanitarian sciences, and so on. And interdisciplinary, nowadays we have interdisciplinary, what we call interdisciplinary kinds of sciences that are related. We call them interdisciplinary because each discipline intervenes or is related with the other. So, and they complete each other, and so on. Now, based on that, we need to think about morality in a different way. So any kind of let's say roots, whether scientific or theological or logical, okay, or economic, or different reasons, they will give you a kind of interpretation for your belief in certain, let's say, morality discipline, okay, or moral discipline. Now, the idea of objectiveness and subjectiveness. Now, if you take an idea or a belief that you believe in it, only you, that is relative, right? And that is subjective. Now, if this is, known to all people and nobody disagree about it, okay, and the reality is out there, whether you like it or not, okay, and it is proved, that is objective. So usually science deals with objectivity more than philosophy, because in philosophy we have different views, different theories, and different people thinking about this reality, right? So what is considered to be the truth to me is not the same thing to others. And here we have differences in the way of thinking according to different philosophers, for example, right? Now, let's see what are other things that philosophy deals with. So, how philosophy is related to other, let's say, different sciences and different, we have variety of sciences. Now, we can think of morality as related to each one. For example, if we talk about economics, we can think about, for example, how is it okay, morally speaking, for example, to use money in a certain context, for example, to have a more prosperous economy in terms of, this country or another. If you are talking about politics, for example, you can think about leaders and how they should rule, right? If you talk about psychology, again, you can think about the moral issues that should be dealt with in terms of different characters, for example, and so on. If you talk about medicine, for example, we can think about the code of ethics of those dealing or working in terms of medicine and doctors in that area and so on. Even in terms of education, we also think about how, for example, moral it is to educate certain issues or to talk about certain issues, and how educators should deal with students to educate them and so on. What are the rules of, for example, if you are a researcher or a student, what are the rules to be followed? Is it okay to take, for example, quotations without mentioning the source of that quotation, which is what we call a plagiarism, and so on. So morality goes and it covers different areas here, right? Now, if you want to take an example on one of the decisions, ethical decisions that has to do with morality and your values, for example, what about cheating or lying or stealing? If you take any decision, for example, that I don't want to cheat in my exam, okay, that is a decision, a moral decision that you are taking. I know that you have the chance to cheat, but you decide not to, so you have that choice. The choice here is very important, that you take the decision or you choose not to cheat, so it is moral. Now, why do we treat this as moral? Because you have the choice, you have the freedom. If you don't have that freedom, it won't be considered as part of a moral issue or ethical issue, right? So this is very important, that we have in life different ethical, let's say, decisions that you think about. Sometimes you take such decisions without knowing that it is related to, for example, your religion or your way of thinking or to logic. Or sometimes maybe because of tradition you are taught this. Okay, so we have now what happens now. We have to think about it, to rethink about it. Is that right or wrong? What I used to do, is it right? Or may I try now to think differently based on that? Because now I'm grown up, I know different things, I'm learning different things. I may reach certain decisions that what I used to do is not okay, based on different issues that are confronting me nowadays, right? So this, in this way, you may change your way of thinking, right? Okay. So if you want to talk about morality, for example, in terms of politics, okay, political philosophy, now you consider things like corruption, like justice, like freedom of opinion, like, for example, giving the rights to women, and, for example, rights of children, and so on. So we have here different issues to think about in political philosophy, right? Sorry. I'll skip that. Sorry. Now, here also we have a word that is very important, which is aesthetics. Aesthetics, it's, as I said last time, maybe I mentioned in one of the previous sessions, it is the study of philosophy of art. So even morality may be linked to art and aesthetics. How can we think about this? For example, the issue of how artists deal with certain issues. For example, if they do they steal, as any researcher, do they steal? For example, if they take a painting and they just make a little changes on it, and they don't refer to the original, okay? Usually we have certain problems like this. For example, originality, we say how original it is your work, how authentic is your work, and so on. And how creative nowadays, we say. Now, creativity is something else, but this is the issue of morality that, for example, art deals with, okay? And what are the topics to be covered by artists, for example? Do they cover important topics that, for example, is faced in our nature nowadays, for example, according to our political situation, according to our problems and social problems we are facing in each country, and so on. Okay. Now, this is another term that you will always see in philosophy, which is the word skeptic. You say, I'm skeptic. Skeptic is when you think about something and you are not sure. You try to raise questions about it, and you want to think deeper and get the answers, and to check the answers, and so on. So you're being skeptic. You can be. This is one of the ways to reach reality. Okay, so always in philosophy you should be skeptic. Okay, now till you reach your agreed way of thinking, that should be logical, based on theory. Sometimes you may agree with, for example, one of the philosophers, but disagree with another, and so on, right?
Doctor, I have a question about morality.
Yeah, can we please write it down, and we'll talk about it at the end. Just please, just to
Okay.
continue. Okay, I'll give you some space at the end. Now, logic here. Here we are talking about another form, another reason why we need philosophy. So, as you can see, logic is very unique. Some people think that logic, and it's very complicated, but without it, it's very essential. Without it, you cannot reach or make any argument that is rational. This is a very important word, rational, because rational, and the idea of rationality, it's using reason, mind, and reason. So everything has to be in arguments, has to depend on rationality, has to be said using your mind, and things have to be proven as valid. So we have this word that is used in logic, valid and false, true, like true, okay, valid, and false and fallacies. We have fallacies, or what we say fallacious. Now, the fallacy is something that you think is right or is correct, but it's proved in logic to be incorrect. Okay, that is a fallacy. So it's something like, let's say, fake, but all people may believe in it. Okay, but it is a fallacy when you contradict yourself believing in that. You may reach different things that are contradictory, for example, in your argument. That is a fallacy that some people may be trapped in. Okay, so we have rules for that in logic. Of course, I don't want now to teach you logic, but I'll show you an example of that in a later stage. Of course, logic is used also in scientific method. Any scientific method to be proved, you used, for example, mathematical proof. Mathematical proof is logician, right? And also in politics, if you want to talk politics here, political arguments. What makes you, for example, decide that this person is more accepted than this person in his, you always judge according to his logic. And of course, you in this situation, you don't think about logic as referring to you. So it's not subjective. Here it is objective. You have certain rules in logic, like mathematics, okay? And upon that, you prove whether this is right or wrong, whether this is valid or fallacious, and so on, which is false, and it's fallacy that you may be in. So sometimes what we have in politics or in social studies, we have statistical studies. Even statistical studies may be built on logic, or sometimes you may find problems in that statistical study that is not based on logic. So we use it in our, comprehension, in our understanding of things, whether to accept or not to accept that thing. Okay, so this is number two. We said number one is the way we think about morality. Number two is logic. Okay. Now, this is another thing, which is truth. So now, I'm saying here, they said four, okay? At least four. We have many, many others, other points to think about why do we need philosophy? Maybe you can think of some of them in addition to this. Truth. So truth, of course, all people think about the truth. They question truth. And we always raise the question whether this is right or wrong. Is it the truth? Is it is this truth itself, or I think it is truth and it's not? So we have different studies to deal with this, and theories to work on the evidence of truth, so that we can say this is right or wrong, truth or false. And of course, in some divisions of science, we have things that are very clear as a truth, and that will be stated in, for example, laws. So in law articles, we have it is done. It is there. You can see the truth in law according, for example, the Raman law. It is accepted to do this. Or according to the American law, it's not accepted, for example, to do this. And according to the Jordanian law, it is accepted. Of course, you always refer to a specific law in certain area at the time, certain period of time, certain country, certain place, and so on. So always things are, very specific if you talk about law. But sometimes here we are not talking about legal issues. So truth, may You may think about truth not only from the legal point of view. So in that situation, you may go back to other things to think about. You can think about the knowledge. So this is one of the things that is, studied when you study knowledge, or you know knowledge. You know knowledge in certain scientific area. You find certain truth that that you cannot, you shouldn't miss. You have basics of each science, okay, that we consider as the truth until it is proved to be the opposite, okay. Epistemology, it's the study of knowledge, okay. It's the study of knowledge and philosophy of knowledge. The philosophy of knowledge and truth, we call it epistemology, okay. And of course, we in each let's say in epistemology, we think, or in knowledge, we think about methodologies. And this is what you use when you work on researchers, for example. If you have research and you want to study certain things, certain topics, you use a specific methodology for that, okay? That's the methodology of research that you may use of course, and they differ methodologies here from one area to another according to the topic, or the term of or the area of study that you are. For example, methodologies used in media are not as methodologies used in psychology, as in history, as in philosophy, and as in politics, and so on. You see, so they differ. Of course, some of them are, are used in different. The logical part, and the philosophical part can be used in all. Okay, but you add to it according to the field of science. So in scientific fields, you have different methodology than for example, if you are studying something related to history, for example, or geography. Okay. So another, I'm trying to skip some of them. Now, of course, I'll share it to you. What do we learn and how do we think about it? How do we judge the truth according to our knowledge, according to our maybe metaphysics? Okay, the philosophy of language affects, as I told you. How do we think according to our language? And does that thing has a different meaning in our language from theirs? Of course, I'm not talking about translation now. Even translation, this is a very difficult issue to be dealt with by translators. They need to get deeper and to dig, so as to know the difference of this, for example, term in a certain language, how different it is from another language. Sometimes it is reflected in ideas in that culture, okay? So everything depends on the philosophy of language here, and the epistemology and metaphysics also. We'll take an example in the Greek philosophy later. We'll talk about it. Metaphysics is very important here because we think about how, of course, if we talk about physics, it will be proved by experiments, right? Everything will be clear and you can depend on that way of rationality. But what about metaphysics? What about things beyond? Okay, if you think about things beyond, the answer of truth would be, and your judgment will be different. So you will, for example, what happened in the Greek and Roman, for example, civilizations? They thought differently in terms of what is the truth. Okay, so we'll see different philosophers who thought about truth in different ways. So, and if you think about religion and different religions, again, you'll see that the truth will be different, right? So we'll handle this according to the different, religions, different ideologies that we'll see later. Now, number 4 is the discourse. Discourse, it's, as you know, that it's very important because you cannot have a discourse without having certain issues to concentrate on in philosophy. It is what you use in any discipline. If you want to make kind of conversation with others, you use that discourse because you need to build upon your way of thinking, your philosophy of life, your philosophy of what is meant by truth to you, what is meant by certain values, for example. So in discourse, where you always refer, or it is reflected in the way you think. In religion, the way you think about right and wrong, the way you think about justification, about certain topics in, for example, politics, like equality, like justice, whether you agree with others or not agree in certain areas, in economy, in politics, things that you think should be treated like in governments when they act. Also, that will be, for example, the political discourse. And whatever is mentioned in philosophy here has to be taken according to, your discourse of the agreement or disagreement has to be based on logic and philosophy. Of course, discourse has, this term can be used in different fields of knowledge. We can use it in media. We say, for example, we have discourse in media. We have discourse in politics, political discourse, in religion. Okay, so in social studies. So you can use it in different terms, but it's all part of what we call philosophy here. Okay. Now I will leave this to you, please, to listen to and to concentrate on while you see it alone. But you should always think about it, that different people have different ways of thinking about it. Okay, so always concentrate on that. I'll stop here and let you see another video that will talk about later on, next time, that will talk about philosophy, but in terms of language. And I will let you see this, please, next time, which is how languages shape the ways, okay, sorry, how it is related to language, and how it affects our way of thinking. Okay, I'll now here stop and see if you have any questions. Yes, please. Can you talk? Who was raising the question? Muhammad? Muhammad?
Doctora.
Yes, please.
I was just asking, when we use mortality to ask a person.
Can you raise your voice, Muhammad? Please. Yeah, once
بقول
again.
لك دكتورة، إذا بدنا مثلا أنت بتحكي إنه we see the person or we judge them on their morals.
Yeah.
هسا how can we judge a person when we know he doesn't have morals?